Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I am Valerie de Liedekerke, the coordinator of the EU Mission Ocean, Atlantic, and Arctic Coordination and Support Action Lighthouse Hub, based here in Lisbon, Portugal, at the Atlantic International Research Centre, otherwise known as AIR Centre. Just to give you a little bit of information about us, the AIR Centre is an international collaborative framework to address global challenges and local priorities in the Atlantic Ocean. It promotes an integrative approach to climate and ocean issues in the Atlantic, supported by emerging technological innovations and advances in space, renewable energy, and data science through international cooperation. Today's webinar is part of European Space Agency's project entitled Blue Economy, Innovation Clusters, Atlantic Natural Resources Management, and Maritime Spatial Planning, developed in the scope of the agency's Atlantic Regional Initiative. The webinar will delve into the advancements made in the marine renewable energies sector, leveraged by Earth observation and remote sensing data to different types of marine renewable energy industries. Unfortunately, I am unable to remain throughout the duration of the webinar. Therefore, I hand it over to Filipe Brandão to moderate the webinar and introduce the speakers. I wish you an inspiring and informative session. Thank you. Over to you, Filipe.
Thank you, Valerie. Good morning, everybody. I'm Filipe Brandão. I work at GMV. We were the leaders of this Blue Economy project, part of ESA's Atlantic Regional Initiative. It's a pleasure to have you all here. We have a very relevant list of speakers that include the European Space Agency, the International Renewable Energies Agency, us, GMV, the National Oceanography Centre, the European Marine Energy Centre, and also WAVEC. And without further delay, I will start this webinar by handing over to Dr. Stefano Ferretti from the European Space Agency. Dr. Stefano Ferretti works in the Climate Action, Sustainability and Science Department of the Directorate of Earth Observation Programs at the European Space Agency, where he is in charge of various projects and he represents the agency in various international contexts in the policy and strategy, space applications and commercialization domains. As fellow of the European Space Policy Institute, he published with Springer 2 books, Space for Sustainable Development and Space Capacity Building in the 21st Century, while conducting space policy research, managing activities towards Unispace Plus 50 and addressing high-level policy aspects across several areas with the European Union. He has an interdisciplinary background in engineering, science and policy, holding a PhD in the University of Bologna, a master from the International Space University, and having completed executive programs in innovation, space policy, and leadership at MIT and at George Washington University. Dear Stefano, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Filipe, for your kind introduction. I would like to thank all the partners that have made this webinar possible. It's really, I think, relevant and also important for Europe to focus this webinar on marine renewable energy. We all know the relevance of new policies such as the UN Agenda 2030 and some key sustainable development goals, which are focusing on development and especially climate action towards objectives that have been set up also in the context of the COP21 agreements in Paris. In addition, at European level, the Green Deal highlighted some key objectives towards the reduction of emissions and with a focus on sustainability for the society and all the economic activities led in Europe. For these reasons, we have initiated a number of partnerships and agreements with specialized partners. I'm really glad to see here today our main partner, which is the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA. So welcome, Imen, to our webinar. With IRENA, we have delved into wind offshore, solar energy, different types of renewables, and this includes also innovative R&D in the area of marine renewable energy, and in particular on waves and tides, where we believe there will be a very relevant increase in the coming years. These R&D efforts have been also supported by development activities. One of these is the contract that we placed with the GMV as a prime, with Filipe as project manager, which involved the NOC in Southampton in the UK. And I'm glad that Christine Sams is here today, together with our main partner for the technical development, and Dennis Mediavilla. She is here representing EMEC in Scotland, the technical center where basically the testing activity of these innovative technologies is being carried out. In addition, we look forward also to conduct some tests in Canada. Canada is a cooperating state of ESA, and I want to highlight that the many stakeholders which are part of the wider Atlantic Regional Initiative, which include also South America, Africa, and countries which are not yet or will not be members of ESA, but could be, in fact, be partners of ESA initiatives, are all welcome to initiate a dialogue with us and to see how to best link the needs of these users and possible stakeholders with the Earth observation technologies that we have available today. Last important point is that Copernicus, as the major European program on Earth observation, which is an operational program, and its data policy is to have data open, free, and fully available to all potential users, is co-funded by the European Union and the European Space Agency, and they do have already some activities and services dedicated to marine renewable energy. So the scope of our webinar today and the activities that we may plan for the near future are to go actually a step beyond what is already operational today. So we would like to identify innovative use cases with member states and other potential partner countries. We would like to play in the global landscape, and we seek IRENA as a potential also partner in identifying these key use cases. And with the partnership, with the support of our technological companies that are today here with us, we would like to see what is possible and what could be the next step, also with new technologies coming up in the marine technology domain. To this end, I would like now to pass back the speaker role to Filipe Brandão for introducing the other speakers. And I look forward to the question and answers time at the end for going deeper in any topic which could be interesting for the participants today. So thanks again to the organizers, and back to you, Filipe.
Many thanks for your introduction, Stefano. And I will directly pass on the word to Imen Gherboudj. I don't know, I'm sorry how to pronounce the surname, she is a program officer at the International Renewable Energy Agency. She is the lead of the IRENA Global Atlas for Renewable Energy, which aims to support countries in project planning and development. Prior to joining IRENA, she was a senior scientist at the Research Centre for Renewable Energy, Mapping and Assessment at Masdar Institute from 2011 to 2019. Imen received her master's degree in electronics engineering from the University of Paris and her PhD degree in water science from the University of Quebec. Imen has more than 15 years of experience in diverse sectors of energy, environment, innovation, and climate. Dear Imen, again, many thanks for being here with us. I hand over to you.
Thank you, Filipe, for this nice introduction. Okay, do you hear me right?
Yes, all good. And the presentation is perfect.
Very good. I think you pronounce it my name very well. Thank you, Stefano, also for inviting IRENA to this webinar. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So as specified by Filipe, I will be presenting today the IRENA work that we are conducting on renewable energy resource assessment. And the objective is basically to show you the kind of support that the members are requesting from IRENA or expecting from us. I will also present the agency engagement with our members and partners on marine energy at the second stage. So first, before starting, I would like to give you a brief overview of the agency. So IRENA is an international organization that promotes the use of renewable energy worldwide. So the agency was established in 2011, and as of today, it has 170 member countries. So the agency works with these member states, basically to promote renewable energy adoption, to share knowledge, and also to support the development of policies and technologies. So the agency headquarters is located in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. But the agency also has an innovation and technology center in Bonn, Germany, and an office in New York. So my role in the agency is to lead the work related to the renewable energy resource assessment. And this work is conducted under the Global Atlas for Renewable Energy Initiative. As you can see on the slide, under this initiative, we have developed different online tools and analysis to help countries understand their renewable potentials and ultimately develop renewable projects. So this support to countries is tailored to their specific local context. So that's the main goal. And our goal at the end is to provide visibility to the country resource potential to project developers, specifically when such information is not publicly available. And also the goal is to accelerate the initiation of renewable project development at different scales. So we support countries at utility scale, off-grid, and also city levels. So this map shows basically the support the agency has provided to countries for planning and developing their renewable projects, again, at utility and city scales. So as you can see, most of this support is focused on developing countries in Africa, Latin America, and also small island developing states that we call SIDS. So first, we have, I want to present quickly the Solar City Simulator, which has been developed for 34 cities in 23 countries. The idea, I know that it's not related to marine, but somehow it's just to show you what countries, again, are expecting from the agency. So the simulator is a free online tool, so developed to help them basically accelerate the deployment of rooftop PV system. And the simulator is designed to help project developers, homeowners, or even the local authority to evaluate the opportunities for installing such installation. So it identified the best locations on the roof for selected cities, the best area to install a PV system. And this will allow them to design their installation as per their needs, estimate the electricity generation, the revenue, and social environmental benefits. And it allows the government to design policies and develop solar programs. And this is what they expect from us, at least to enable them reaching their goals. Quickly as well, we have the bioenergy simulator, which is also a free online tool. designed to assess the bioenergy potentials for various biomasses, different technologies, and also end use for any location around the world. This is another requirement that the members request from IRENA, is to provide global solutions that they can use online for free to estimate their potentials. So we have currently the version 1, which is 1.0, but the upcoming upgrade is 2.0, and it will have more biomasses and also a revamped website. So under this initiative as well, we have developed the cost-effective pre-feasibility analysis to support countries in accelerating the project development process. So this analysis identified the financially viable site for solar and wind project developments. So through this analysis, we conducted first in close collaboration with countries representative, and it includes the calculation of the energy yield and also the estimation of the tariff and levelized cost of energy, basically that make, of course, the site that is selected viable for project developments. So this analysis was conducted basically, or we assisted member countries to in Africa, Latin America, and also small islands, right, in screening more than 140 promising sites for renewable projects. So the analysis at the beginning was developed for onshore technologies, solar and wind only. But recently we have extended this analysis for offshore wind and also floating solar PV. And we are really eager to apply this for selected cities for any country. So that's, the first, I would say, in our team, this is the first service that we have developed that covers somehow marine energy. We have also a zoning analysis, which is a GIS-based multi-criteria analysis developed to map investment opportunities within a country for planning and also developing utility scale solar PV and wind projects. This will help the countries, of course, in developing and implementing their national energy generation and transmission master plan. The methodology, of course, we try to combine high quality renewable data sets with the infrastructure and land feature. I will just cite here the road and transmission network because they are important to identify these locations. And it will map, this analysis will map the zones with high feasibility to develop solar and onshore wind project. It also calculates some attributes characterizing the zone, which include the potential installed capacity, the energy profile, let's say the levelized cost of electricity. So this analysis we also conducted in close collaboration with the country to take their local context, so they will get the appropriate zone to plan, the generation for the coming 10 years, I would say, and even set targets. We have conducted the analysis for El Salvador and Colombia, and the upcoming analysis are for Georgia and Colombia. So we conducted the same analysis, or we applied, I would say, the same analysis for African country to support internal analysis. And the result of this analysis, we integrated in the Global Atlas for Renewable Energy, which is also a free online tool. But the Global Atlas also contains more than 1,000 of high quality, up-to-date datasets, renewable datasets, and they cover mainly all renewables: wind, solar, geothermal, bioenergy, hydropower, and also marine resources. So the dataset that we have different temporal resolution. We have monthly and hourly long-term averages. They have different spatial resolution for a few hundred meters to a few kilometers. And we have some data from countries, but we are interested more to global coverage to reach more countries. The Global Atlas also contains historical long-term meteorological data sets that we integrated last year. It contains also several ancillary information, such as the transmission road network, protected area, population density, and topography. So the platform also enables users basically to overlay different data sets listed in the catalog and to identify basically the area of interest, so they can download the data and also try to analyze it further on their offline on their computers. So the data set that we have in the Global Atlas are all developed by a highly skilled international organization and also research institutions. We have data from ESA, ECMWF, NASA, UNEP, FAO, DTU. We have Australian National University and others, of course. So we are continuously working on updating these data sets and also integrating more in the Global Atlas. So countries and users can check these data sets, and it will help them in their reaching their goals for basically deploying more renewables. So the data set integrated in the Global Atlas that are related to marine, I would say they are few for the moment. So we have data that, for instance, tidal elevation and velocity. We have the global power density, and these data sets are developed by Novelties. We have also some data ancillary information on bathymetry, I would say, and they are developed by GIBCO. And we are, of course, interested in integrating more data sets to support marine energy. So this information that we have in the Global Atlas about marine or even the other renewables, it provides visibility to the countries' resource potential. But countries, of course, need specific support. This is what I was presenting at the beginning of the presentation. They need specific support to develop projects and potentially develop analysis as well. This is what we want. So develop specific analysis for marine energy that will help them succeeding in their goals. So IRENA has received few requests from its members to support on marine energy. I would say just for this presentation, we will focus on small islands. So in the context of the small island SIDS, small island developing states, the current total installed renewable capacity is around 8.7 gigawatts. And definitely the ocean-based technologies can easily close the gap to help them meet their target of 10 gigawatts by 2030. And it also will contribute to their energy security. So this brings me to talk about the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative, LHI, which aim basically to help small islands shift from fossil fuel to renewable energy. The SIDS or this initiative also include 21, it's like, since it is an initiative, so they have members, so they have 41 member states from SIDS and also 52 partners. And these partners are mainly from organizations, businesses, and also research groups. And IRENA basically manage and support the initiative. So under this initiative, IRENA has conducted a series of webinars on marine energy a few months ago. And basically the purpose of these webinars is to understand the country needs and learn also from specific case studies. So as per the webinar that we had, the trends in marine energy technologies are tidal energy, wave energy, ocean thermal energy conversion, which are appropriate to support the blue economy activities. We have also some case studies on offshore wind, floating solar PV, but we also spotted other innovative solutions, such as reverse electrodialysis. So each of these technologies, so we understand from these webinars that each of these technologies offer distinct benefits, but also face unique challenges. But together they can represent promising avenue for sustainable and diverse energy future. So during this webinar, as I said, they have presented some case studies for selected technologies. So for the ocean thermal unique energy conversion, so we have Komojima model in Japan, which integrates different marine energy technologies, and it is appropriate for remote region. We understand that by 2040, it will be coupled with the floating solar energy as well. There is also the 100 kilowatt pilot project in Malaysia. There was actually 130 kilowatt uptake project in Nauru, but unfortunately it got damaged by environmental events. Sao Tome and Principe has announced the development of the first commercial floating uptake. But they didn't specify yet when it would be, when it will start, work. Palau, Mauritius, and Barbados, they identified already potential locations for OTEC. Bahamas, they are still at an early stage, and but there is a great potential for such technology. So other case studies were presented also for offshore wind technology, because there is a significant potential for this technology globally, and the installed capacity is projected to increase to 40 gigawatt by 2030. But specifically, if we talk about the islands, high untapped potential is identified in Oceania and also Caribbean. For floating solar, we had concrete examples from Singapore. They have the largest floating solar PV of 60 megawatt. Seychelles also has been exploring this technology as part of their effort to transition to renewables. And project of 5.8 megawatt is under construction, or they will start the implementation of the end of this year. Tuvalu and also Samoa, they have both two projects, but they are still in pilot stage. So the challenges in developing marine energy are diverse. The first one is related to data. And this is, as I said, we observed this, let's say, from the webinars. So first is what are the best locations to develop a project. And this also include the site for a landing site for OTEC. There is also lack of baseline data sets that are needed to understand the current state of any region. Another challenge, which is basically financial, it is the extremely high upfront cost to develop projects, but I would say that this can be linked with the availability of data sets. The restricted fiscal budget, but the appropriate technical assessment can help in de-risking the project to get finance. The high level of technical and commercial risk associated with the technology caused by the lack of the commercial maturity of some technologies. The climate change impact is also was noticed, and this is the example of Nauru, where the power plant was destroyed by the environmental events. And the last point is also extremely important, is the environmental impact of marine technology on biodiversity, and which has to be monitored. And an example was observed in Seychelles, where the marine life was a bit, compromised for, I think, pilot project, if I'm not mistaken. So from this webinar and our engagement with our partners, we understand that countries need for innovative and tailor-made technologies that consider local context and resist to the climate change impact. The need for technical assistance for research and development. So basically here we talk about marine spatial planning for site selection and baseline data collection and management. There is also a need for climate finance instruments to drive the cost reduction. They need also the involvement of key stakeholders so they can help them with the data technical assistance, and also assessing the environmental impact on biodiversity. So that was, the conclusion that we had from this webinar. So for more information about IRENA work, please visit the agency portal. Full description of the tools and analysis that we developed under the Global Atlas Initiative is published in one brochure that you will find also on IRENA portal. The last message that I have is if you need more information about the CEST Lighthouse Initiative, you can visit the link that we have on the right side. And if you are interested to partner with the CEST Lighthouse Initiative, please let us know, and we will be happy also to engage. That's all from my side. Thank you. To you, Filipe.
Many thanks for your presentation, Imen. It was a real pleasure to see the work that you are doing at IRENA. I will follow the session myself. I'm the next speaker. I'm Filipe Brandão. For those who do not know me, I am a biophysics engineer. I have a master's degree in geographic information systems, and I've worked for several years in the maritime domain, more specifically within the Portuguese task group for the extension of the continental shelf, where I have been directly involved in the geomatics team that has prepared the proposal that Portugal submitted for the extension of the continental shelf, which is now under discussion in the United Nations. For some years now, I have changed to the space sector. I work at GMV, mainly as project manager and helping business development, having been involved in a series of projects that focus a lot of domains, from security, health domain, maritime domain, obviously. And this is what brings me here today. And this is why we have been involved with ESA in this blue economy project. I will start by now sharing my window. I hope that you are seeing. So this is what brings me here. The Blue Economy Project, Innovation Clusters, Natural Resources Management, and Maritime Spatial Planning. This is an activity that has been led by us at GMV under the umbrella of the ESA Atlantic Regional Initiative, and we have been the prime contractors of this project, and the idea is to provide you a quick overview of the work that we have done in the scope of this project. A very quick introduction. This Blue Economy project is part of ESA Atlantic Regional Initiative, as I mentioned before, and aimed at providing insights and solutions in the blue economy thematic. Basically, our idea was to demonstrate how can Earth observation support the aspirations and requirements of EU marine policy. And within this big concept of blue economy, we focused on three main pillars: Atlantic natural resources management, maritime spatial planning, and innovation clusters, each one of these pillars steering different lines of work that I will present further along. As you probably have seen from the first slide, this is the result of a work of a wide consortium, a wide team. GMV was, and we still are, the prime contractors of this activity. And besides all the management activities, we have been the ones leading the development of a marine pollution detection service that I will present. We had the National Oceanography Centre with us, and they were the ones responsible for the development and implementation of two services, one focused on coastal monitoring with the Channel Coast Observatory, and the second one focused on marine renewable energies that will be after my presentation presented by the National Oceanography Centre team. We had also the University College Cork with us in the consortium, which produced a very important report on technology innovation clusters and how can agencies such as ESA connect with these to foster the uptake of Earth observation data for the blue economy context. We also had the participation of the World Ocean Council with the production of a report on data synergies for marine spatial planning for blue economy, which was also a very important component of the report on technology innovation clusters prepared by University College Cork. And finally, we had SpaceSur, a company that facilitated the link with stakeholders and allowed us to reach for the other side of the Atlantic, meaning that we have worked directly with stakeholders from Argentina. And this was a great achievement because obviously we are talking about the Atlantic, and we were able to expand from the European Atlantic to the South America Atlantic, which was very nice. So the three main pillars that I mentioned before: Atlantic natural resources management, maritime spatial planning, and innovation clusters. These three pillars steered different types of developments. The first two were the pillars that allowed and hosted the development of actual technical services. In the first one, we developed and implemented services focused on flood and coastal erosion risk management with the Channel Coast Observatory, and as another service focused on marine renewable energies with EMEC, the European Marine Energy Centre, that we are also fortunate enough to have with us today. And within the maritime spatial planning, we developed and implemented a EU-based service for marine pollution detection and monitoring. This was the service implemented by GMV, and here we worked with the authority Porto Vigo and INIDEP, which in simple terms can be considered an Argentinian fisheries agency. And we had what could be called a parallel line of work that went through the entire project, and this one was focused on leveraging data for future road mapping. And here we had important information collected and processed to generate two important reports that we will approach further along the presentation, and that I have referred already. One focused on technology innovation clusters and another one on data synergies in Maritime Spatial Planning for the Sustainable Blue Economy, the report that was developed by the World Ocean Council. So let me dive into the technical developments that we have implemented. The first one was the Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Service that was developed by the National Oceanography Centre, and this was the result of various talks and various discussions with the Channel Coast Observatory that allowed the identification of 5 possibilities for the usage of Earth observation data in the coastal monitoring programs of England, which are operationalized by the Channel Coast Observatory. We discussed about filling the gaps, having higher frequency data for low risk areas, discussed a wider spatial capture, for example, for after events, and this wider spatial capture is clearly provided by Earth observation. Improved trend analysis where data capture is difficult. We're talking about, for instance, for bathymetry and intertidal areas, and a better understanding of what happens between the lines, meaning in terms of seasonal and natural variability. In the end, it was agreed to focus our attention on intertidal topography using synthetic aperture radar data processing methods. And for this purpose, there are a number of different techniques that could have been applied, and that use either optical or radar data, or a combination of both. In the end, the method that was used by the National Oceanography Centre uses freely available Sentinel-1 data available from the ESA Copernicus Hub. In simple terms, the National Oceanography Centre uses a series of radar images coupled with sea level height information and use a temporal waterline processing methodology to produce estimates of topographic height for intertidal areas. And you can see an animation in this slide running, showcasing this variability in terms of intertidal topography. The technique composite estimates heights at a minimum spatial resolution of roughly 6 square meters within a defined temporal window. And from the experience that NOC gathered during the project, the best accuracy is obtained in the UK by using between 3 to 6 months of data. The second service that I would like to refer to is the GNSS interferometric reflectometry for remote sensing of sea state. Obviously, I will just provide a very quick overview of this service because there we will have a dedicated presentation on him after I conclude my own presentation. And as the first one, this was the result of various discussions, this time with the European Marine Energy Centre, EMEC. And the idea was to understand their needs and define the service that could in fact be an added value for their operations. And in this regard, it's important to mention that EMEC runs a series of high energy test sites, meaning that in situ measuring techniques such as ADCP suffer regular failures due to extremely powerful forces experienced at these sites. And in the end, low-cost GNSS IR, interferometric reflectometry, was identified as a viable and highly promising solution for remote sensing of sea state. And this is a service that has been developed and implemented by the National Oceanography Centre for EMEC. I leave just this service with this image, the presentation of this service with this image. This graph that compares wave heights measured by wave buoys, the blue line, and against measured with using this technique, GNSS IR, which is the orange line. And as you can see, there is a remarkable consistency between these two lines, confirming the added value that a methodology such as GNSS IR can have for remote sensing of sea state, even more important in these types of high energy test sites. Finally, in terms of technical development, I would like to quickly describe the work that we did within the marine pollution detection and monitoring. These services address 2 topics, floating macroplastics and oil spills, and in the end, the idea was to provide stakeholders with insights for more adequate decision-making, and analyze dynamics to generate some kind of trends. GMV worked in this regard with two stakeholders, as mentioned before, the Authority Port of Vigo and INIDEP, the Argentinian National Institute for Fisheries Investigation and Development. And going directly into the plastic detection service, I leave you with here a couple of images. This was an experiment that we did with INIDEP, and where we cooperated on the building and deployment of a dedicated plastic target made out of fish boxes that was deployed, put in the water in a synchronous way with the Sentinel-2, which were the images that we used for development of this service, with the Sentinel-2 observation scenario, and that allowed us to confirm that this type of macroplastics, floating macroplastics, were being correctly identified. As you can see on the image on the right-hand side, we have the detection of this plastic target offshore Argentina, and we, in addition with the detection of the plastic, we provided additional information such as the confidence level of the detection, the type of plastics, and the service is able to distinguish between two main types, LDPE or PET. The position of the detection, the confidence, the positional error, the date, well, all this type of metadata that provides additional information rather than just a simple detection. And in terms of these marine pollution detection services, I end with what I would say is the main finding of this service along the project duration. This was a big spill that we identified in the waters of around Vigo in the summer of 2021, and this was obviously immediately communicated to the Authority Port of Vigo for them to try to investigate what could have been, who could have been the responsible for this event. You can see on the right-hand side a bright spot in the lower part of the image, which is the vessel that likely was the one that originated this spill. And after this overview of the technical services developed during this project, I'd like also to highlight the activities that have been developed focused on innovation clusters, meaning trying to identify existing services and gaps for a stakeholder-driven technological roadmap, which is the activity that was led by the University College Cork. Obviously, although not directly related to technical developments, which is more the core business of companies such as GMV and the National Oceanography Centre, this work was a crucial part of this project, mainly for identifying the path forward in using data, both EO and non-EO, non-Earth observation, to advance the blue economy sector as a whole. So we started the work in this topic by formulating the question that we'd like to get an answer for. How can the European Space Agency work with technology innovation clusters to better support blue economies with Earth observation data? And to answer this question, one of the most important things to clarify was, what are technology innovation clusters? And here we are talking about technology innovation. We are talking about the triple helix, meaning industry, government, and academia, coupled with what we call the wider community, and that can be turned this triple helix into a quadruple helix. It is important also to consider that technology innovation clusters are typically geographically confined and sector-focused, meaning that they work in specific sectors and do not address all blue economy-related topics. They are typically policy-led, and they do this by gathering relevant stakeholders within specific regions who are interested in the development of a given economy sector in that specific region. And this is why stakeholder engagement activities is something very important when we talk about innovation clusters. And all this is done by creating and nurturing innovative technology developments. Finally, another important thing to consider is the fact that innovation clusters are context-dependent and unique. And this is one of the reasons that makes it difficult for large organizations such as the European Space Agency, who has obviously a global view rather than a regional or local view, to connect with these technology innovation clusters. So we got back to the original question and tried to establish an approach that could help answer what in principle should not be that complicated. How can European Space Agency work with technology innovation clusters to better support blue economies with Earth observation data? And so our idea and our approach was to actually talk to people, the project stakeholders. And here it's important to refer that we obviously benefited from a large pool of stakeholders that were brought by the European Space Agency from their network of contacts, but obviously we also benefited from our own contact networks, and the various contacts that we had with stakeholders often opened the doors to others. We want to gather their perspectives and develop a data-driven roadmap with recommendations to ESA, considering short, medium, and long-term scenarios. And we did this by holding semi-structured interviews along 5 main topics: innovation, innovation clusters and innovation networks, ESA programs, perception of Earth observation, opportunities for Earth observation synergies, barriers, challenges to uptake, to EO uptake in their area. And it's important also to refer that we included inputs from other sources such as literature and reports, leading to an iterative process that in the end resulted in a final version of the roadmap that was prepared and delivered to ESA. And when we talk about these reports that we analyze, a special mention should be given to a dedicated one that was produced by the World Ocean Council in the scope of this project. This is why we refer the World Ocean Council as one of our partners. And that was a very important input for the final technology innovation clusters roadmap. This report prepared by the World Ocean Council explores a series of important topics, such as the critical aspects for maritime spatial planning and its data-related challenges. Maritime spatial planning allow me to say it in a briefer way as MSP. So the existing data needs and gaps concerning MSP, current approaches to establish MSP policies, challenges and opportunities in data synergy for MSP, aiming to provide insights into enhancing strategies, the underutilization of Earth observation data by MSP authorities, collaborative initiatives to promote the use of EO data, and finally fostering partnerships, educating stakeholders, and quantifying benefits to support the sustainable blue economy through MSP strategies, with a focus obviously on Earth observation data, which was the key idea. So in numbers, where did we stood in the end of all this activity? We learned to never underestimate the volume of information that we can obtain by interviewing stakeholders. And as an overview, we had 22 stakeholders groups with a total of 30 interviewed, 2 deep dives, one on innovation clusters and one on OSPAR opportunities, 1 geographical expansion by the possibility that we had to engage with the Argentinian stakeholders. And all this meant in the end 600 data points supplemented with another 500 from literature, resulting in more than 1,100 data notes interpreted and analyzed. And here I would obviously like to highlight the effort and the work put into this task done by the University College Cork colleagues, which I believe are here attending this webinar. All this allowed the generation of over 260 recommendations that have been delivered to ESA on a range of different topics, but with 84 of these 260, 84 specific to how ESA can engage with the innovation clusters to improve Earth observation, maritime synergies, which was the main objective from the beginning of this work focused on innovation clusters. In more detail, these 84 recommendations on how to engage with innovation clusters have been gathered in 8 key action areas and were the basis for a dedicated policy brief that is here presented. You can see the image on the left. It's this policy brief that we produced focused on innovation clusters and how ESA can interact with them. And these key action areas range from simple exercises of assessing realities of the maritime economy to how to connect with innovation clusters and update those connections in order to identify which activities could be undertaken together and who else could be involved in them apart from innovation clusters and the space industry and space agencies. So this was a very extensive work. We are very happy with what we produced. And to finalize, all this was summarized into a single roadmap document that was delivered to ESA. And this roadmap includes 4 policy briefs for ESA to use when engaging with member state representatives, includes high-level action areas for politicians and decision makers to consider and give go or no-go decisions. As I mentioned, 260 recommended action within the action areas for decision implementers, entrepreneurs, and researchers to take note of. And finally, and not least important, all this work and all these actions are traceable, trackable, and transparent while maintaining the confidentiality of the interviewees who trusted us with their open perspectives. And with this, I conclude my presentation. I just wanted to leave a final note to the fact that obviously this was a very brief overview of the work that we have done. We held another webinar before the summer break that you are all invited to see. It's available on YouTube, and I can share the link in the chat if you are interested, where you will have a more comprehensive presentation on this innovation clusters part, a presentation from the World Ocean Council. And obviously this can provide you further context for all the work that we have done during this project. And with this, I end my presentation. I thank your attention, and we can proceed with the webinar. And now I will hand over to Christine Sams and Simon Williams from the National Oceanography Centre, who will make a joint presentation. And I don't know exactly the dynamics, but Christine and Simon, you will articulate yourselves and focused on the service that we have put together, focused on marine renewable energies. Christine has been working within the marine physics and ocean climate team in NOC, and Christine works focused on the application of environmental research with a strong focus on ocean and coastal remote sensing. Christine has a background in offshore engineering. And Simon Williams gained his PhD in 1995 from the Durham University on current motion on faults of the San Andreas system in Central California, inferred from recent GPS and terrestrial survey measurements. He has worked on sea and land level measurements in the Marine Physics and Ocean Climate Group at the NOC Proudman and in Liverpool since 1999. And prior to that, spent 4 years at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, La Jolla in California, working on GPS and GPS INSAR integration. He has particular expertise in the area of stochastic modeling and uncertainty analysis of geophysical cities, including sea level, GNSS, and gravity data. More recently, he has been working and developing ground-based GNSS interferometric reflectometry for measuring sea level, wave height, and sea ice. Christine, Simon, I hand over to you. Thank you for being here.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Filipe. Let me just share screen. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Yep, we're in. Cool. Brilliant. Okay, I should also mention, alongside Simon and myself, is also Paul Bell, I hope is on the call somewhere. So the real brains underpinning the work that I'm going to present are Paul and Simon. So I've invited Paul to chip in if I forget something really important or he wants to add anything to what I'm saying. So if you see a Paul pop up, then that's a good thing. Right, what are we going to talk about? So let me go back one. So yeah, we're going to talk about the use case that we developed that Filipe has already introduced on GNSS IR. And yeah, for very near coastal areas. So just a little bit of context. I'm sure Imen's already covered all this off, but you know, the marine renewable energy sector is at a really buoyant, I think, and critical, exciting phase of development. So wave and tidal energy, which are the topics that we focused on, are still largely deemed pre-commercial. There's lots of really high growth potential projections out there, and we've seen a massive activity on the policy and investment side, particularly in the EU and the UK, which means that we're going to see a lot of projects deployed in the next few years. So it's a really good time to be engaging with the sector. And there's lots of really interesting reports that cover all these things off that have been published recently, including IRENA's. And yeah, in terms of context, then from an EO perspective, there's a sense that the data that is being generated from satellites is not being fully exploited, and there's lots of opportunities to develop new services and really help support the successful development of the marine renewable sector. Imen already mentioned some of the uses of EO that they're doing. If you look on the Copernicus site, you can also see some use cases. Yeah, but there's definitely much more that we could be doing. And so I think from an EO side, a good way of thinking about how, so one of the real challenges here is how do we get the attention of the sector that's really focused on delivering their projects, reaching their next milestones, making sure that they meet the requirements that they have to meet in order to get the next bit of investment to continue the development of their projects or their technologies. So, we have to think as an EO sector, how do we really do something that is valuable, gets attention, and can contribute. So the overarching challenge for marine renewables is, driving down the levelized cost of energy. So bringing, like offshore wind has done, as the deployments go up, really tackling overall cost of energy, which involves all the aspects from capital, operations and maintenance to how much revenue they're getting for the power they're producing. So I think, for me, engaging with marine renewables, the EO sector is thinking about how can we, effectively, can we really contribute to this? And if we can find good use cases that can show that we actually can have a material impact, I think that's the way to get engagement and stimulate more activity. So we worked with EMEC on this project. I think EMEC are a perfect partner, lots of experience, huge network, and a really great test site for showcasing things. So working with EMEC, we looked at lots of different things we could do with Earth observation. There are obviously lots of different aspects of project and technology development where we could contribute. But there was a specific practical need to better understand the upper ocean dynamics at their test sites. So we particularly identified non-tidal currents at the wave site and understanding sea state at the tidal sites. And as Filipe has already mentioned, these are really high energy sites. So actually getting direct observations in the water is a big challenge. They've got ocean models, high resolution ocean models for these areas. And we chatted quite a lot about, could we do some validation? Do we do forcing? What do we do? But those are all kind of things that already happen. So it's how would we do something that's a little bit different and a bit more innovative? And I think the proximity, the scale that we're talking about here, so quite small sites, very close to the coast, is actually also challenging for a number of Earth observation products. So we decided that GNSS-IR is the most interesting, I think, opportunity here, and particularly some recent developments in low cost. So it's very innovative, it's quite different. Simon's going to talk after me and show he's the real brains behind extracting useful information from these signals. But essentially what GNSS-IR is picking up reflected signals from the satellite systems and processing those signals to derive water level information, and now sea state is what we've been doing. So there's been lots of scientific work on the high-end receivers. So these are GNSS systems that are in place. They cost about 20,000 euros, pounds, dollars, whatever it is. That kind of scale of investment for these high-end receivers that have been used for other applications for a long time. But recently, because there's been such a surge in in development of GNSS small chips for car positioning, for our mobile phones, for drones, the science community have been using those and extracting data from those. So that's a real game changer. Back in 2018, 2019, we did a very first trial with the Royal National Lifeboat Association in West Ireland to do a proof of concept. So with a really cheap, puck bought from Amazon or another online retailer, could we extract useful information? And we managed to. So what you can see here is the site that we were looking at. On the left, you can see a little tiny black thing. That's the receiver itself, housed in a weatherproof housing. And then the center picture, you can see the line of sight. So the way it works is the receiver has to be able to see the water in order to pick up the signals. So we got that in the water, we got that out on site, and we got really good results out of it for a fraction of the cost. So like less than £100, we were getting really good information, and that work's been published. You can read about that. And it's still operational. So, you know, many years on, it's still providing near real-time data. Then the research kind of continued, and Simon and Paul put out a number of other systems and demonstrated that we can also not only get sea level out of these systems, but also get significant wave height. And that really unlocked this opportunity with EMEC. So the concept for the this project was that we do a kind of cross-Atlantic demonstration of the technology. So we've got a relationship with Force over in Canada, the test site there. They already work with marine radar and other remote sensing data. So they were really interested in using GNSS IR. We pulled one of their operational guys over and trained him up in the equipment and sent him back with a system to deploy. Unfortunately, that has not yet gone out, but it is going to happen hopefully quite soon, and we'll share those results when we've managed to process them. And then the idea is also then that we do these deployments at EMEC, hopefully parallel deployments, both at the wave site and the tidal site, if we can get the right infrastructure in. And, you know, really use these to showcase, to see what we can do, right? So do it in a very open way with the sector. You know, use the networks that EMEC and Force have got to make it available to the community, and see whether we can really use this data to reduce the need for in situ measurement campaigns and support operational planning. So actually, let me go back. So we've really struggled to get the equipment deployed. Actually, it's been quite a challenge, just because of people and busy organizations and lots of delivery pressures on them, and this is kind of a nice to do ad hoc thing. So we now have got the go ahead from EMEC. I know Denise is here, so I should probably say something later, but we've got the go ahead from EMEC. So it's just a case of us getting on trains, planes, and whatever else to get up to Orkney and get the kit in the water, getting the kit on the land, not in the water. So since then, we've done lots of development of kits, tested different designs, and put them out. So I'll just show you some of the technology so you just see what it looks like. Kind of very simple in some cases. So this was some early temporary deployments that were done up in Liverpool. So this black tube here, which Paul stuck on a sign at the Crosby coast, I think that might be, contains the receiver, some radio link electronics, and some batteries, and that was out as a test, very successful test. You know, we tried setups that would just last 2 weeks. We tried longer setups. So again, another little battery powered system. And then, yeah, you can see the sorts of things that we're putting out that have lasted really well and been really good at delivering good results. This is a deployment at Clevedon Pier. So the Severn Estuary, which has got really high tides. So yeah, you can see, so this is down on this platform. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but platform down there. And this was used as part of the SWAT CalVal project that happened, I think, last year. And that again is still operating. Just to show you, so this was a completely different system. So this had solar energy harvesting and storage and electronics in there. So you can see the receiver right up here. So getting a really good high view of the water. And then we've got solar panels and storage down here. So, you know, there's various ways we can do it and various ways we can transmit the data back. We've generally been trying to put laptops into dry rooms nearby so that we can log into those and update software if needed, do any troubleshooting, and pull the data off. Again, other systems. So we've got a high cost and a low cost system running up in Liverpool at Peel Port site. Again, just doing more testing and finding different ways to manage the data. We developed a small like lunchbox system that we can just tape out onto things and get data, for example, for like a tidal cycle to look at how tides are different. And then this is a system that's been up in Orkney, working with the Orkney Islands Council, and that's probably the system that will go over to EMEC as soon as we can get up there. We've now also been able to get near real-time data for both wave and sea levels. And I will hand over to Simon and let him give you the real insights into the results that we're getting. If Paul wants to jump in with anything, please do.
Okay, thank you, Christine. You see that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can.
So, yeah, I'm going to talk about how we get significant wave height from the GNSS IR in a not too technical way, I hope. So we're going to go to the very basic principle. You can imagine that any signal that comes from a satellite to a receiver will go direct to that receiver, but will also interfere, reflect, refract, or scatter from any nearby environmental objects. Those two signals, that indirect signal then is taken up by the receiver. It will interfere with the direct signal, and we get what is known as multipath. Multipath has been a problem for positioning from day one. We track it by what's known as a signal-to-noise ratio signal that we pick up. And there have been many studies ever since we've had GPS trying to mitigate this problem, particularly so nowadays for people trying to do work in urban canyons for navigation. So a while ago, researchers also started working out how they could model this multipath in simple situations. And then they went on to realize that if they could understand this interference, then they could possibly use that to measure certain physical attributes around the receiver, particularly if those attributes are changing. So this eventually led to the development of GNSS reflectometry, and the case that we use here, what we call is ground-based GNSS IR, interferometric reflectometry. So one of the simplest models is if that surface that it's reflecting from is a flat surface, such as the sea surface, and it's a very geometrical problem. You get a direct signal from the satellite, and you also get this reflected signal that takes a further distance to reach the antenna. And that distance, it depends on the height of the antenna above the water, the elevation angle of the satellite signal, and the wavelength of the GNSS signal. So those three things combine. If the heights, if we know the elevation angle, we know the wavelength, what we can get is the height of the antenna above the water as the water level changes. So what we'll see is it produces an interferometric signal. They interfere with each other, going in and out of phase, and they produce what is roughly a sinusoidal signal. And that sinusoidal signal depends on the height above the water. So for low height, you get a much longer wavelength. And as the height increases, you get a much higher, faster wavelength. So on the right here, we can see actually that signal-to-noise ratio data plotted here as a function of sine of the elevation angle, and we see this periodic wiggle, sinusoidal wiggle. And if we convert that to a frequency, we see that we have a peak at around, in this case, 2 meters. That is our height of the antenna above the water, our reflector height, and therefore we can measure water. So I can show you lots of these, but basically what that means is if the site has basically a good visibility of the water, then we can measure water levels. So obviously the setup on the left has a really good view. We can measure water level well there. Something like the one on the right with all those boats in the marina would probably not give us a very good signal at all. So we can measure water level. And this has been done for quite a while now. Around the world, we probably have around exceeding 300 GNSS sites that are capable of measuring sea level. Some of those sites, because we can go back in time to when they were started, they were in situ put in. We can see that we can get record lengths of 10, 20 plus years nowadays. And less than a handful of these were basically installed for this purpose. They were all installed for other reasons, which is therefore we have this excessive database of measurements of sea level that we didn't have before. We have a database of those results on the Permanent Service for Mean Sea Level website, and the web address is down below. So that's sea level, but what we're going to talk about is sea state. I gave you the easy case there. So in terms of sea state, we can go back to those physical models again. But first, I'll step back to just showing you this plot here. This is 2 signal to noise ratio time series elevation series, both from the same satellite, PRN06, a GPS satellite on L5 wavelength. One was from the 10th of May 2020, one is the 13th of May. The difference here is that one had wavebuoy nearby showed that the significant wave height was about 0.5 meter in the top plot, and at the bottom plot we have a significant wave height of about 1.6 meters. You can see in the top plot that you have a much more coherent signal over a longer elevation span compared to that bottom plot, where you only have a really coherent signal to say 5 degrees, whereas it's past the 10 degrees for the top plot. If we look at that slope of the amplitude, we can also see that the slope differs as well, that the amplitude drops quicker when the significant wave height is higher. So that gives us this opportunity to measure sea state. So we actually go to, if we look at those wavelengths, so these are wavelets of those 2 significant wave height SNR signals. We notice that the white lines are actually the area where you would expect the reflector height to be, the bounding bounds of the reflector height, and we can see that the top plot has a lovely bigger, stronger signal for the top plot compared to the bottom plot. So if we can measure that significant the cutoff angle, again we can measure significant wave height somehow. So these are 2 physical models for electromagnetic waves reflecting off smooth and rough surfaces, and they predict a relationship between the 2. Basically, all you need to know is that anything that's below those lines, you get a coherent signal, so you'll get those sinusoids. Anything above is incoherent. So if we can measure that cutoff angle, we see that then we get a relationship between elevation cutoff angle and significant wave height. So the plot on the left is those models for different wavelength of the water wavelength, the height of the reflector, and the GNSS wavelength. And on the right is a predicted set of values for real data using the BSM model, showing we get this nice relationship between the cutoff angle and the significant wave height. So the next part, I'm going to show you some examples from certain sites. So the top 3 in this plot are sites that are on platforms either in the North Sea or off the coast of California. Bottom left is a site that's at the edge of a harbour. So it's on the seawall at the edge of the harbour. And the bottom 2 right ones are sites that are just on the coast. The blue line in each case is the fit to that data, and the black line is the predicted fit from the BSM model. So it's a pretty good fit. There are differences, and it's something we're still looking at, but we can see that we are actually starting to believe that we can measure significant wave height with this data. As I mentioned earlier in the plot, we saw that there was that, we can see that the slope of those signals change with significant wave height. So here's a plot of that parameter, the decay parameter we call it, that slope, against significant wave height from a measured wavebuoy, which is about 4 kilometers away, 5 kilometers away. These are just arbitrary set to each other. There's no actual relationship in this plot, but we can see that we have a very good relationship, good relationship between the 2. So 2 ways of measuring the significant wave height with the GNSS-IR. So here are some results from that. So the first one is one of these high-end 20K GNSS sites situated on Euro platform in the North Sea. You can see it in the bottom left here, the grey antenna there. And it has a wave recording system next to it. So the top right-hand plot, we have the GNSS-IR in blue and the Euro Platform Wave Management in orange for about 2 to 3 years. And we see really good correlation between the two. If we zoom in a bit to a few months, the bottom left-hand plot there, we can see that correlation a little better. We can see that it really does a very, very good job during most of the times. And on the right is a correlation plot between the derived GNSS-IR significant wave height and the significant wave height from the actual measurement system there. So we've got good confidence we're actually seeing it. So the main bit of this is that we wanted to do this with low-cost systems. So this is one of the ones that Christine mentioned to do with the SWAT UK project. The low-cost system is installed inside this building at Nels Point in South Wales. And the plot on the right shows roughly the sort of area that we are measuring across. So this is what are called the Fresnel zones, so this is where we actually are recording the reflections off the sea surface. Again, an equivalent plot. So this is Nels Point for just over a year that we've had it deployed. On the top there, again, blue is the GNSS-IR and orange is the model from a nearest point from a model in the CMEMS database. But first, I was actually quite disappointed. Although it looks quite good, if you zoomed in at times, you thought it didn't really reflect it. Shows some of the stuff, at least some of the events quite well, but not always in time, or there are differences. So if you look on the bottom left, this is just a zoom from a few days. You can see that while it does show roughly the same characteristics, it has this tidal signature in it. And it turns out that, that tidal signature shows that it's the peak of the significant wave height occurs about 1 hour before the highest tide, the high tide. And this is something the researchers have found, expected this to happen. So what we're actually seeing is that the GNSS-IR is picking up this tidal modulation, and that tidal modulation is not in the model. So it actually is doing a good job. And we can see this slightly on the plot on the right, where we compare that same data with a wave buoy at Western Bay, which is on the other side of the estuary. So you wouldn't expect it to do a good job of showing the same thing, but actually what the Western Bay buoy shows is it has that tidal modulation, so we can believe that what we are seeing in the GNSS-IR is real, it's just not in the model. Another unit we installed was part of the EuroSea. We installed it on that lovely green-white striped lighthouse you can see in the top left plot. The antenna is actually up here on the railing, a little black antenna there. It looks out towards the sea and not into the harbour. And the blue line in this case is the wave buoy results, and the orange are the GNSS-IR data. Again, we see a really good correspondence, and I think what we're actually seeing in places such as this area here is actually these are physical differences between the two systems and not errors in the actual GNSS-IR results. So what have we achieved? GNSS-IR has been demonstrated to provide accurate measurements, significant wave height, especially in high tidal flow areas. The Severn Estuary is a very high tidal flow area. It has tides of 12 meters, something like that. So we can still do it in a system like that. It requires an unobstructed close proximity view of the water. So it needs a good view of the water. It needs a good range of elevations to get that measurements, and a moderate elevation above the water, something like 10 to 14 meters. The low cost and discrete nature of the hardware allows us to deploy rapidly. I mean, it's so much easier to deploy something like this than putting in situ instrumentation or buoys and places where it's too vulnerable to damage. It's much more secure. It's on land. We have demonstrated near real-time processing. We're doing that for several sites, the 2 in the UK and several in Spain. And we're working on that to improve it and get more automated data flow and study other ways of combining the data to get better results. And we're going to continue to progress that deployment of systems at EMEC and Funday and evaluate the benefits for the MRE applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Christine. Christine, just confirm me that your presentation is also finalized after this one from Simon?
Yes, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you both for your comprehensive view on the work that we have performed under the Blue Economy project. And we continue this webinar with the presentation from the European Marine Energy Centre with Dernis. Dernis is originally a physical oceanographer from Argentina. She has been involved in marine renewable energy for more than 10 years. She is based now in Orkney Islands, Scotland, where is the commercial manager of the European Marine Energy Centre, EMEC. She is responsible for identifying commercial opportunities in offshore renewable energy generation and decarbonization initiatives, managing the business development team, and establishing new business streams. Before this role, Dernis served as the Marine Energy Development Manager at EMEC, leading proposal developments for offshore renewable energy projects and engaging with new technology developers. Her career also includes significant roles at Energia Marítima SPA Americ in Santiago, Chile, where she supported project divisions and coordinated business strategies from 2015 to 2020. Dernis holds a PhD in oceanography from Universidad de Concepción, Chile, and a degree in oceanographic sciences from Universidad de Buenos Aires, Argentina, and also a certified project management professional. Dear Dernis, thank you again for your availability for being here with us today. I hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Filipe, for the introduction, and good morning, everyone. So let me try to do the share my screen moment. Okay, I hope that everyone can see that.
Perfect.
Yep, perfect. So again, my name is Dernis, and I am EMEC's commercial manager, and I am here to present you a little bit of what we do and what EMEC does in respect of marine energy. We're working on other sectors as well, but in particular for wave and tidal, as has been the focus of this conversation and the focus of our discussions also with Christine and Simon. And so a little bit of context, who we are. EMEC started, and we still operate 4 test sites in Orkney Islands, Scotland, and basically is a purpose-built open sea performance testing facilities that we offer to developers to come and test their devices. So we've been doing this for more than 20 years. We started to work in 2003 and received £39 million in funds from those institutions that you see on the screen that were invested on our facilities. We are a self-maintained institution, meaning that we do not have any baseline funding from them, but we operate our facilities, and with R&D projects, we support them ourselves and maintain the innovation going on the team. So after all this work, we are the only renewable energy test laboratory for marine energy in the world to the eyes of the IEC. And basically what we do is try to reduce the time, the cost, and the risk of sustainable technologies. And in this case, again, the focus of this chat is on wave and tidal. So basically what we say is, you come to EMEC and you forget about putting your cable in the water, doing your baselines, and deploying instrumentation in case of the wave side, and all that. Let's say we support permitting, we have a streamlined way of getting them in the water. So it's basically to say to developers, just focus on you, on your technology, and try to minimize the concerns and work and cost and risk and time of the other things that surround technology deployment. So Orkney-based. If you're wondering where Orkney is, that's the only reason I put this map on. So I'm sorry, there is a lot of information there that I am not going to cover now, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them after. So you recognize here the big island of the UK. Orkney is there. If you basically you go through Scotland, get to the north, close the birds on Firth, and here is Orkney. If you keep going, you arrive to Shetland. That's too far. And we operate, as I said, 4 test sites. 2 of them are wave energy orientated, and 2 of them are tidal energy. So, well, they are marked on this very confusing map, but number 2 and number 4 are our wave test sites, and number 1 and number 3 are the tidal sites. So what do they look like, basically? Well, nice pictures, of course, and a diagram of what a grid-connected test site look like. On my, the image is inverted, so I'm not going to do right and left here. I'm going to say wave, as you can see, the name Liedekerke, tidal, the fall of awareness. Those are the grid-connected test sites where the energy is quite wild. Basically, you know, the idea is for technologies to come here and test under the harshest conditions. Kind of the analogy I use that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't is if you are going to buy, you know, a car or a truck, I should say, and is one that survived the Dakar, in case someone is familiar with those analogies. That's the same approach that we use. If technologies come here, test, and actually prove themselves under these conditions, then they have like a very big thumbs up for their future deployments on potentially mellow ones. Not to mention that we as EMEC also support them on all the things like performance assessment and so on that can give them a little bit more independent and objective say about their own performance on site. We also have scale sites just because the other ones are too wild sometimes, and in general developers tend to start, or not everyone, but in general they tend to first aim to deploy in our scale sites. They are usually shorter deployments, like 1 or 2 months, 3 months, to see, you know, how they go. Some of them, their focus is this, just because of the wave climate and tidal climate of our test sites. As our scale sites, as I said, they are a little bit more friendly, I should say. Well, not everything is friendly in the North Sea, just in case, but they are friendlier than the fall of awareness and Liedekerke. So in the case of our grid-connected test sites, we do operate ourselves in the wave site, 3 wave rider buoys that are crucial for the developers to understand the conditions, both past and present, of the site. And we also, of course, have numerical models to cover a little bit more spatially the resource in both. We've run bathymetry data collections and seabed, all the geotech and all the drill, because of course these machines need to be installed somewhere, and they do need to know the depth of the place, hopefully some more information about the seabed, so that they can make decisions about their moorings and anchor systems. In the case of the fall of awareness, as well might be familiar with tidal energy, is a little bit expensive, let's say, to get some real-time data from there. It should involve like an ADCP connected real-time. Not only expensive, but in the case of the fall of awareness, borderline impossible, just because of the nature of the resource that peaks at 4.5 meters per second. So we've done multiple ADCP drops that also have to be lovely protected, like you can see there on the tiny scheme, and I have a picture later, just because it's such a wild site that basically, you know, nothing survives, and from here and there you have rocks flying around, the joys of working offshore. So that's basically our main in situ data collection resource. And of course, we have our environmental monitoring baselines, both sites are near protected species areas. So it's very, very key for us to understand the long-term behavior of them. We have basking sharks at Liedekerke and seals in the north of the Fall of Warness. There is a big area where they breed. So for us, of course, is key to us, just to quote a very significant research around their coping on this. Environmental monitoring has a lot to do with real estate. It's location, location, and location. So understanding exactly what, when, and how these animals live around and within our sites is key information for us to say, okay, this will work, this will not. So after all this blurb, 35 devices have been tested at EMEC so far, only including wave and tidal energy converters, because given that we already operate an offshore test site, we've seen other things also in our waters, including materials, coatings, ROVs, AUVs, moorings, quick connectors, data centers, just why not? But that's a little bit of this chat. So this is the likes of what they look like in case, just for a little bit of familiarization, recent deployments of orbital marine power, Marine Renewables, and motion energy on the wave side. And basically they come here, as I said, to learn. What we always say is that all of them, they do iterative testing, basically, well, not all of them, majority of them, even with us or outside, and then come to EMEC, or in the middle, they come to EMEC. Anyway, basically, my director says that the moment they unload the machine from the boat, the container, the tow, they start thinking about the next one because they realize that they forgot or they should have done this other thing. And so that's the nature of what we do and what marine energy is at this point right now. So key points for them to learn with the offshore testing is installability, survivability, reliability. Maintainability is highlighted because it's one of the things that are the biggest sources of learning right now at EMEC in particular. And of course, operability. At the end of the day, we are not, they are not charities, and they do tend to look for cost effectiveness or their technologies, as we've done in solar, in wind, and so on, trying to collect knowledge and learning to get that learning curve ramping up and cost lowering down. So what about data? That is the focus of this conversation today. Probably, and I apologize to the ones we already had this conversation with, because I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. As Filipe mentioned, I am by training a physical oceanographer, and I might have in my previous life, as I call it, worked with satellite data and worked with, of course, a number of in situ measurement ways and numerical modeling. So from that past experience, I can definitely say something about the size of the opportunity of connecting my both worlds, that is the marine energy and the oceanographical one. Data on all this conversation for the technologies is absolutely key before they get in the water, from site selection and then for micrositing. Environmental baselines are also key. Site preparation, you need to, if you are going grid connected, you need to deploy a cable, you need to define where the cable goes and how it will interact with the local conditions. And I repeat, environmental monitoring, I should have said there as well. And the scheduling maintenance is also key. For them, of course, the less maintenance, or the cheaper the maintenance, the more accurate the maintenance, the lower the cost of the OPEX, and that is something that is proven to be a challenge in offshore. I mean, for broader context, the only industry that has so far put things, let's say technology, operating offshore long term is oil and gas. Oil and gas have, how can I say? I'm trying to be nice here. Bigger numbers to work with, okay? So there are not many intentions to have learned or to look for effectiveness on their maintenance and operation methods offshore. So a marine energy device is a machine that has moving parts that needs to sit offshore as long as possible, survive on the basically worst conditions you could think of, because that's where the energy is, that's where I want my machine to be, and also create key learnings to actually make that as low cost, efficient, reliable, and safety possible. In all this, maintenance and the schedule of maintenance and understanding the oceanographic conditions where these machines operate is absolutely key. And also understanding how they interact, as I said before, with the flora and the fauna that is on the place that they want to deploy. Not, of course, in the real world, they are gonna go way beyond our test, the test sites, and they will look for their own sites. And again, another one is the performance monitoring. That is the other side of, the environmental machine interaction. Is also how the environment impacts machines, also in maintenance, but also in performance, and not to mention survivability and switching between operational modes. What in terms of data, what do we need? We need a lot. I'm probably forgetting many here, but I just highlighted a few of the key ones that I see. A little bit biased, I have to say, but hey, resource assessment, wave and currents, of course, that we are trying to collect energy from waves and currents. So of course we need that information, but we don't need them only long term. We also need them in spatial coverage, which is challenging in the ocean. We need to know extremes. For that, it's not that easy to measure as well. Numerical modeling is our tool to potentially work on forecasting or to extend, especially and temporary, in the past our measurements. And of course, we need information about the bathymetry of the place, the seabed type, hopefully, and environmental impacts. In our case, birds and marine mammals are key in the place where I personally sit, but there are other species that, for example, live in the bentos that might interact with cables and moorings and anchors, and system changes in general that we should be starting to dig into a little bit more, especially now that we are hopefully on the verge of the ramp up of the arrays, in particular for tidal energy. So how those machines might impact the energy fluxes, sediment transport, ecosystem movements, species migrations, and all that is something that we really need to start looking at. So in practice, what do? We collect data. In situ, this was mentioned also before. We have our wave rider buoys, we have our EDCPs, we do onshore observations for marine wildlife and acoustic measurements as well, if and when is required by the developer and or the regulator. This looks lovely. Unfortunately, all these measures are a point. I was going to say a drop in the ocean. They're not a drop in the ocean. They're a point in a huge area that we might be able to extrapolate thanks to the support of numerical models, but it's not the same as actually having that measurement on your hand. So here is when the conversation comes with Earth observations, and in particular the technology that Christine and Simon just presented you. That we are very, very excited to have on site, I will say, okay? But now, okay, lovely pictures. We love the pictures with the quiet oceans You know, that the image of the wildlife observer there is absolutely fantastic, but in practice, that's not where we operate. We operate in places that myself as an oceanographer, my heart shrinks every time we deploy an ADCP, because the chances of not getting it back or getting it back just hammered by rocks are real. So on your, I want to say right side, anyway, on the map, you can see a very, very, high level brief of what we're talking about. We did register a single event of a 20-meter wave in Liedekerke. There was another of 18 meters a couple of years ago. The weather windows are key as well, because you can see, and you can say, well, 2 to 4 meters average wave height doesn't sound too terrible. But when you are in autumn, winter time, and you have storm after storm after storm, you are not going to go offshore. Many reasons. First, of course, it's not safe, so we don't allow you to go to offshore. Second, you might have, a 2-day weather window where you could be doing something, but you are not able to actually accurately forecast that. 2, book a boat. Boats, of course, charge you, even if they cannot go offshore and you already rent them, you need to pay for them, and they are expensive. So there is this cost discussion around the climate and the resource that goes beyond the operation of the machine itself, but also applies to, as I've been saying, the maintenance and operation, the maintenance as well, the supply chain, divers, boats, all of them are reliable on these conditions. So what you can see on the pictures, lovely pictures there, the picture on the bottom side is just the one day at Liedekerke. That's kind of what it looks like. And the picture on top is our tidal site. That doesn't look too terrible, but just to clarify, that is one of our marker buoys. So that's supposed to be, that's static. And you can see there is actually the current passing by on a normal day. So this is actually what, actually measuring at sea looks like. Looks like time series that are not continuous at all. You need to get machines out to, for example, clean, another conversation about environmental impacts and environmental interactions, and the other side of the discussion of how the environment affects the machines. There you are. That's an example of one of our wave rider buoys taken out of the water for normal maintenance. And the other one is a lovely picture of an attempt of deploying one of the wave rider buoys already cleaned back in the water. But in practice is where all these machines flourish. Is that what we're looking for? We are looking for these highly energetic, harsh, wild scenarios, because that's where the energy is. You can see almost, a happy face in the 3 of them that I put down there. So what is the opportunity from my perspective for Earth observations is lowering the cost of data collection. I mean, I've been hearing the presentation that was done before by the GNSS, and I'm like, yes, I want those numbers. So very, very happy to see that collaboration flourishing. And the spatial coverage, as I said before, that's also absolutely key for microsighting, for maintenance, for a lot of things. That's key. Reliable measures. Why do you say reliable? It's not that wave riders don't work. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that sometimes they tend to have a trip, and yeah. That's the way it is. And long-term data series, well, batteries, we know batteries, they have a life. So you need to keep, taking machine equipment out and going back in. Or in the case of ADCPs, you only can have 3 to 6 months weather window, depending on, how you program them. But that's what you can collect in terms of currents. So for me, Earth observations are could be fantastic to complement in situ efforts of measurements and ocean observation, and to support also the numerical modeling that is at the end of the day a key tool for ocean forecasting, and to make that maintenance and operation as low cost as possible for the sector. So that's me. Very happy to answer questions during the Q&A. Disclaimer, I might have to drop out and come back because I do have another meeting, but in case I'm not here at the moment of the questions, there is my email. Feel free to write me, and I'm very, very happy to answer anything you might want me to. That's me.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you for your presentation and insight. Very, very interesting and impressive. When we say high energy, just when we see the images, we understand what we mean by high energy. And we continue our presentations with our webinar with WAVEC. Marco is already here with us. I know you experienced some challenges on joining the session.
Yes,
thankfully,
it's been a very difficult morning.
Yeah, thankfully you are here with us. So we continue with Marco. Marco is a PhD and a master's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in management and strategy. He's currently the Chief Executive Officer of WAVEC, Offshore Renewables, a renowned organization with proven track record in advancing the offshore renewable energy sector, having previously held the position of Chief Innovation Officer at Colab Plus Atlantic, a cluster of Portuguese companies operating in the blue economy and space industry. Marco holds a key expertise in several scientific fields, including fluid dynamics, coastal engineering, control systems, numerical modeling. His track record has been mostly focused on offshore renewables, a field in which he has wide experience in providing technical and strategic support to technology developers. Marco, the floor is yours. We don't see the presentation yet in presentation mode.
It's not.
It's in like a normal PowerPoint, not in presentation.
Let me see. What about now?
No, probably you have to stop sharing and reshare just the window.
Is okay now?
Now, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, thanks, Filipe, for the introduction. I'm really under pressure because I'm facing some issues here with the internet connection at home. I don't know what is happening, so I will try to speed up a bit the presentation in order to avoid any type of disturbance. Anyway, I would like to share a few thoughts with you about using satellites and satellites imagery in offshore renewables, and share with you some thoughts and some products that we are developing here at WAVEC. But before that, I would like to put some numbers in what we are talking about. Let me see if... Do you see the new slide is moving?
Yeah. It's
okay,
perfect.
Very good. So looking into the projection for floating wind, or for offshore wind in general, DNV projects a number about 1,748 gigas in 2050 of offshore wind. From those, 15% will be floating wind, and 15% represents about 260, 250 gigawatts. Okay, this is the number we are talking about. If we look into the initiatives of many governments around the world, including Portugal, we in fact will end up with a number that is slightly close to these 250 gigas. Okay, so just to create some kind of framework here. Then if you look into offshore wind and bottom fixed offshore wind, we end up with another concern. And this concern is the magnitude, the huge costs that are during the lifespan of a farm that will be allocated to operation and management. Okay, this is something like must be optimized. And I think Christine shared a few thoughts about it. in order to improve the LCOE, we will need to reduce operation and maintenance. It's critical. So operation and management is absolutely a key part of the efforts to reduce the LCOE and improve cost competitiveness of the sector. This is critical. The LCOE of offshore wind today is between 150 to 100 euros per megawatt hour, and this is something like, of course, we need to improve for the sector to grow. Okay. So according to these values, and taking into account that the OpEx of floating wind is about 80,000 euros per megawatt of installed capacity each year, so we end up with a TAM of 30 billions. What TAM I'm talking about is basically the TAM regarding the capacity to the TAM of the services to optimize operation and maintenance, assuming, and this is an assumption of this calculation, assuming that we can improve the OpEx or reduce the OpEx in 10% with the very accurate tools to optimize the planning. Okay, so what type of vessels will be allocated, the logistics, the weather windows detection to do this or that type of activities. This is basically what optimization is about. Okay, so assuming, and this is a very conservative, let's say the low scenario is assuming that these services the optimization of the services for operation and management, the planning, everything, with the very good tools, we will represent a reduction in OpEx of 10%. I believe, I may say, I strongly believe that the space for optimization is much more than 10%. Okay, but taking a value of 10%, we will end up with a TAM of 30 billions. If we are looking, and of course, this is the perspective of WAVEC and the partners of WAVEC in this business. If you are looking or centered our attention just in Europe, we don't need to do it, but let's assume that going to Asia for the protectionism and between other issues, it will be more difficult. Latin America is not so difficult, but anyway, center our attention just in Europe, we will reduce the 30 billions to 18 billions, okay, which is the so-called SAM. So the area we are first looking at is Europe, so our TAM will be reduced from 30 to 18. And then if you assume that, again, the perspective of WAVEC and its partners, we will have a market share of 5%. Again, I think that this is the low scenario, and most likely we will be able to have a share a bit higher than that, but just focus on 5%. This will represent a sum, so the service obtainable market of about 1 billion till 2050. It's important to say that for the next 20 something 30 years, more or less. Okay, so this is basically what we are looking at in terms of numbers when you think on improving. It's not a question of improving, it's a question of defining, because offshore wind or floating offshore wind is not yet a solid industry in Europe or in the world. So when we look into this capacity, we will be looking into values of this order of magnitude. Okay, so this is why, and I would like to stress this is why there's a lot of efforts, not only for institutions like WAVEC, but many others all around the world, a huge effort on this type of tools, integrating a lot of information to optimize activities, including operation, including maintenance, including inspection, and so on, logistics, and so on. Okay, so this is basically what we are looking at. So, and for that we need to combine data. And we need to combine data in a way that as much as data we are able to integrate, of course, not data. In fact, in many cases, we made this confusion between data and information. What we are looking at is information. So the data treated in order to get useful information. This is the point. But combining data, we are already in a stage that we have in situ data, oceanographic buoys, as you have seen in previous presentation. We have access to this information. We will have access to the infrastructure sensing, so the SCADA systems of the turbines. So this is something like let's say, the state of the art. We will have access to very sophisticated numerical modeling tools that ranges from very simple models to very complicated models, linear theory to CFD, okay? But there is a lack, and the lack is remote sensing. And remote sensing from images, satellites, etc. And this is basically the critical part to add more useful information to these tools. And then, of course, we will rearrange everything to create algorithms, data processing, and so on, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all those hot topics nowadays. But anyway, first we need the inputs. And the inputs are those that I'm trying to show. In situ, infrastructure, numerical modeling, and remote sensing. And if we doing that, and of course, remote sensing can be used to in the let's say estimate phase, so the forecast, weather windows, electricity production, etc., can be used to evaluate the condition of the platform. And I will give you some insights about it, the condition of the platforms and the moorings, and also to assess metocean historical data and so on that was obtained also with satellites. But at this point, we are focused on the evaluation part, simply because, well, a bit also in the estimate, because forecast, as we'll see, is still a critical part of these tools. But anyway, on the evaluation is basically the part of the using satellite data that we are putting more emphasis, especially the support algorithms for maintenance decision in the line that the aspect that I just mentioned. Okay. So in this, the opportunity lies to some extent in providing bottom line information regarding the condition of the turbines, but the condition of the turbines not in turbine by turbine, but integrated in a holistic way, looking into the full farm and not only in a particular turbine, because the particular turbine is the information we have from the SCADA system already. So what we need here, the useful information from satellite imagery, is basically the holistic view of the farm itself. So this is why we used to say that we are looking into the forest instead of just one particular tree. Okay, this is basically what we are trying to do here, is to bring additional information, critical information that give us a complete understanding of the farm itself. So we are doing it for floating wind. I may say that nowadays the activities of WaveVec lies on floating wind in 90%, 85%. So is a huge part of our activities nowadays. We have the possibility, and we are looking at these aspects that I will show some slides later, on the relative distance from between the turbines, relative rotations, the orientations, the turbines operating, not operating, surveillance issues, and so on. And we can do it in a relative way, as I said, relative distances, because from this analysis, we can, it's very hard to believe me, but it's true. We can extract some information from the condition of other components. I will give you an example, and the example is the following. If we are looking into an array of floating wind turbines, and we see that there is a shift or a drift of one particular turbine in a determinate position, and this shift, if the drift is higher than a predefined threshold, let's say predefined threshold, because they are floating, they can move slightly around, we can end up with a conclusion that one mooring line is not working properly. There was a displacement of an anchor. So something like that is not direct information, but is indirect information that we can extrapolate using imagery from satellites. Okay, and we can do it for, as I say, our focus is floating wind, and I think it's more or less obvious because it's an industry that is speeding up really fast, is growing up day after day in a very quickly. But we are also looking into floating PV. We have been working with EDP in some projects here in Portugal, in a dam in the north of the country, and in Alqueva, the biggest, one of the biggest in Europe. Floating PV is also critical for us, wave energy, and so on. So, and basically what we are looking, doesn't matter what type of concepts we are focused on, is basically this type of things. Looking, see relative motions, surveillance issues, and so on. But of course, there is some kind of tricky part. So the difficult part is not looking into an image and extract information from it. The critical part is basically how to articulate this information with many other aspects, because we cannot, and this is the beauty of this analysis, so and these developments. So the thing is that we need to articulate what we know from the satellites with failure detection using SCADA systems, with the logistics, type of vessels, availability of those vessels, these type of things, and at the end of the day, also with the electricity price forecast. So it will be really important to know if we should put we should have the farm producing electricity, and we will end up with these type of issues in a near future, or shall we use this energy to produce hydrogen instead? So this type of things. So articulating all this information in order to better planning the operation and maintenance activities, and at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning, reduce OPEX and eventually reduce LCOE. So this is basically the main focus that we have been following. So the model 3 in this articulated scheme is basically the one that is related to satellites, and we are exploiting. So I will share with you some images. This is basically the other image, but with some additional information. We see this is from a Sentinel-2 image. It's not a very high precision figure, but if you look paying a lot of attention, we will see that there is 3 turbines, and this is basically the wind farm that we have up in the north, here in Portugal, the wind float Atlantic. So if you look, we can extract some information from the orientation of the turbine. We can extract some information from the relative distance between the turbines, and again, and the relative rotation. So you can extrapolate information about the direction of the wind, and basically looking into the direction of the wind, we will see if the yaw control of the turbines are working properly or not. We can see, as I said, the positioning of the turbines. They are in the right position, they are not in the right position, and very early to understand if there is a problem with the turbine. And of course, it's very hard to understand what the problem is nowadays, because the track record is really limited. And of course, we are talking about a farm with just 3 turbines, But imagine a farm with hundreds of turbines and a few years of experience. So collecting all this data will give a lot of information, and we will be able to identify immediately the problem before the problem being a problem. I don't know if I'm clear on that. So it's basically prepare the action before the problem occurred. So, and this is basically what this type of analysis allow us. Of course, again, as I show, the entire model relies on the articulation of this information with other information, because if, let's assume that if I detect a problem in a turbine D2, according to this figure, I will need a special vessel, and then I will need to understand how much it costs. Is it available? Is not available? Is available today but won't be available tomorrow, so let's take this action today. So this type of concerns is basically the holistic approach that we are trying to follow. We means WAVEC, and of course many our associated partners and many other partners. So this is in terms of surveillance, it's very hard again to see it because the image is not really high precision figure, but within this red circle there is a vessel, and this is surveillance is critical and will be critical when this infrastructure became vital for the energy production in the country, when they will be very relevant in the mix of energy in Portugal, in Spain, in Europe in general. We will end up with the conclusion that surveillance is critical because many bad things can happen. I won't describe those bad things, you can imagine. But anyway, just to give you an idea that surveillance is a huge concern, and we are looking at that. Again, in this holistic view of the farm, and basically this is something, is an area where satellites will be absolutely critical, much more critical than any other type of equipment that we can take in place. Again, wake effect, and wake effect will give us a lot of information that we can collect and decide in order to improve the layout of the farm itself, in order to avoid shadowings and these type of things that at the end of the day will reduce the cost, will reduce the power production, and which will have an impact that is basically the opposite that we would like to follow, that is basically increase the LCOE if you reduce the power production. So all these type of things, I just choose 2-3 examples in order to save some time, but of course there is plenty of examples of things that we are already doing, but of course in a very early stage, in a development stage, but we are already envisaged this type of near future, and anticipated that this type of information, satellites imagery, will be absolutely critical from the optimization point of view. And there is another aspect that I think is relevant, and before finished, just to say that I see I've been working on space industry for the last 2-3 years here in Portugal, in Colaplas Atlantic, and I realized that there is some kind of win-win strategy here, and win-win means that it's very important, as I'm trying to show, that the renewable energy sector, mostly offshore wind at this stage, because it's a more advanced industry, will need the help, let's say, from the space industry, from satellites, in order to optimize services and so on. But there is also a very beneficial aspects for the industry, from the space industry, because as we know, satellites are used, I don't know by heart, but 80 or 90% of the services from satellites are communications. And this opens a bit but of course the satellite can do much more than that, all right? And this is also an opportunity to use satellites in other activities, to involve the space industry in other activities, which I think is an aspect that I would like to stress here. And this is why I think that this is a win-win positioning between is very synergic to articulate space and offshore renewables. This is basically the what I would like to say. What we are doing, and before finish, we are using for the development low precision figures, Sentinel-2 and this type of figures that we have seen. Of course, other images are much more expensive, but we believe that in a few years with other satellites with better resolution, I may say resolution direct or after treating the image can improve a lot of in the GeoSat with we can reach a precision of a 35 centimeter resolution, which is it's hard to say, but at this stage I may say that is more than enough. Okay, and of course if the Atlantic constellation become a reality, we will have a lot of satellites, and I anticipate that this will be almost a commodity, so images will be really cheap. Information from satellites will be really cheap. It's not the case nowadays, but in a few years, most likely will be. And a few years, that is basically what is the time required for developing all the farms that are in the plans of many countries all around the world. So sorry to speed up, but I feel really under pressure because I'm facing these problems that I described before, but I think you managed to understand more or less my message. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your presentation. With your presentation, we finished this round of presentations, and we move directly to the Q&A sessions. We have already some questions in the Q&A. We had and also on the chat. I see a question related to algal blooms and satellite imagery. This is not 100% clear for me, but I will try just to say a couple of words about this, and also just to refer that I expect ESA to join us soon also for this Q&A session. There are important points for sure that the agency would like to share. But in terms of algal blooms, obviously, and I don't understand the question very well, but if it is related with about the possibility of observing algal blooms from satellite images, the answer is very clear. For sure, we can do this. In fact, the Copernicus Marine Service has a dedicated product focused on phytoplankton, where you can see clearly algal blooms and the concentration of chlorophyll. We are talking about in a more regional scale rather than local scale, and if you want to move for a more local scale, we can use images such as Sentinel-2 with a spatial resolution of 10 centimeters. I hope to have clarified this question, but in any case, if not, please let me know. And I will move directly to the Q&A panel, and there is a question here, I assume for Christine or for Simon, about any chance to use GNSS IR from moving platform with compensation.
Yeah, so the basic answer is yes, you can, just about. We've tried it on some ships where we got some good results. In terms of, so the ships, it depends on the size of the ship, I think the compensation would be. We haven't done compensation and got good results, but I think if you had a smaller ship, then maybe you might have to deal with that too. But the fact that the height stays the same means that the significant wave height can be measured that way.
Christine, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I think that's covered it. Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, but I take the chance to have you both, you and Simon, engaged, because they just dropped a new question. How much does a GNSS setup cost, and is there training required available to use it?
My answer.
So, well, on the cost side, it completely depends on the context, right? So where is it? What equipment's already there? Yeah, and what's needed in terms of the power and comm systems. So I guess the answer is a bit of a as long as you're on, right? So it could be, yeah. What else? So training. So I suppose, I don't know, do you want to say anything about the training? So we're still developing technology, right, and the systems. So we're not really in a position where, I suppose we're still working with partners like EMEC, like Fundy, to demonstrate, understand what works and what systems they need for the sector. So there isn't anything formal in terms of training and things available. Simon's been giving, I think, Simon, do you want to say anything about the courses you've been doing?
Yeah, so I've been involved in 2 GNSS IR courses hosted by UNAVCO, Earthscope in America, but they have so far been completely related to sea level and not significant wave height. There's not been one on significant wave height yet. Some of the courses did go into how to set up a low-cost system though, as well.
Okay.
I can say something about cost if you like.
Go on, Paul.
Sure.
Okay, hi, I'm Paul Bell. I'm part of the team, and as Christine said, there's a range of cost options, and it very much depends on what equipment is there to start with. If we have power available and communications, i.e. the internet, a good broadband connection present, that simplifies things enormously. You can just put a PC with the receiver plugged in and some communication software. The actual receivers can be anything from 20 or 30 euros up to a few €100 if we go for the slightly higher end ones that have a bit more positioning capability. So overall hardware costs, you're probably looking maybe a couple of €1,000, but then there's what we're trying to understand at the moment is the value proposition of the processing side and the QC and so on. So that's a work in progress, but in essence, it is significantly less than putting anything in the water, because we can have this on the shore overlooking the water where it's easily deployed and maintained.
Thank you, Paul, Simon, Christine, for your inputs to this question. There is a question. There are a couple of questions that lead up to the same topic. One from Miguel asking about the recommendations on how to better connect Earth observation to the maritime sector, if they are available to the general public, and also a question similar from Hendrik about the possibility of accessing the report that maximizing data synergies in MSP for the sustainable blue economy. Well, the answer to this question is I really would like to provide you a conclusive answer, which unfortunately I cannot. Both these reports, all this work has been done under the scope of the Blue Economy project, which is an ESA project. All these documentations are now in ESA's hands, and the level of if they are to be public or not, this is something that is, to be completely honest, a little bit out of my reach. I would like ESA to wait a couple more minutes to see if ESA Stefano can rejoin us again, and probably you can provide much more comprehensive answer to this question. In the meantime, and while Stefan does not join us, we have another question from Miguel, and then this one is for me. If the services for marine pollution are automated, my answer is yes. We have both these services in GMV ready to be deployed. They face different types of challenges. I would say the service focused on oil spills based on satellite images is quite more mature due to the technology that we use in terms of the images, more precisely synthetic aperture radar. For the plastics detection service, that we have other challenges to cope with, but in any case, the service is ready. And when I say about challenges, I say spatial and temporal resolution of the type of images that we use. We use Sentinel-2 images, which are freely available from the Copernicus program, but that obviously have some kind of limitations that prevent us to have a more robust service. We are counting. We are in any case, we are working in another activity, another project from ESA, focused on marine plastics detection, floating macroplastics, and we are testing a super resolution algorithm on top of Sentinel-2 images to see if we can bypass some of these technical limitations from the satellite images. Let's see how we can progress in this regard. And also, it's important to refer that we are all, I would say, expecting about the potential added value from the new satellite Sentinel constellation, that we are sure that will provide more powerful tools for this type of development. But in the meantime, we keep working with what we got, and we expect to have some improvements in respect to the plastics detection. In the meantime, I also have a question to Imen, to IRENA, and it's about, obviously, Imen, you have a wide experience in renewable energies. We are talking about here about marine renewable energies, but I believe that you work in renewable energies as a whole. And I would like to see how you see the role of the space industry in the development of this wide renewable energy sector. What is your experience in working with us and the type of products that, and basically, how can we provide further help to the sector?
Thank you, Filipe, for the question. I would say first, and I think you presented at the beginning, my PhD and master were on remote sensing. So, so I worked a lot on environmental studies. But since the environment is also a way to reduce the impact of the climate change is by working on renewables. So that's why, I find a place on it. But what I would say on working on the Global Atlas initiative, and all the data that we have been integrating in the Global Atlas, or we are using in our analysis, most of them are developed based on satellite data. The long-term averages for solar or wind, or even for marine, they are all, the source is the remote sensing. And definitely the use, I think we are above, getting, good estimates of the renewable resources, because we have been working on it for 40 years. Now, what country needs more is on the management of the power plants. That's at least the real concerns that are, that we hear from countries, or how we can minimize the impact of the climate change on the power plants themselves. So some, I would say organization, they are talking about forecasting, trying to predict the future to at least, early warning system to predict. But remote sensing, since we have, I would say, historical data and real-time measurement, it can enhance such kind of systems, right? Because it gives somehow a good estimate and a large overview of what is happening, at national scale or regional scale even, to monitor, the power plants, because at the end, that is what we want, right? Have more energy right? To reduce basically fossil fuel. So I would say that yes, the remote sensing, the space agencies have a great role, at least to keep, or at least enhance the management operation of the power plants, and also trying, as I heard since from the beginning, or even during the presentation, that the operation and maintenance of the power plants, yeah, that's a fact. That's also what we heard from these webinars that we did on marine, but I didn't mention it because I didn't think that it is the topic, but it was raised a lot for each case study as a great challenge for countries. So I don't know if I answered to the question, but I will be happy to elaborate more.
No, you did. Thank you. Thank you very much. Since we don't have any more questions, I take the chance to pose a question to Dennis. I understood while I was following the developments of the project and how we could cooperate with IMEC, it was a challenge to set up a service that could in fact provide you with actual added value. We believe we achieved that, at least in a potential way. I would like to ask, and I saw your slide about the opportunity. If in the meantime you think of anything specific, and obviously I'm thinking about the space industry, which is the industry that I'm representing, on how we could further help centers such as yours on the development of your activities.
Well, two angles. First, we are happy, despite the challenges, to host any sensor technology development initiatives. Having said that, the main challenge, as in anywhere, is as always the cost. So we are a self-financed company, so we are a non-for-profit and all that, research-orientated, self-financed company. That's why the juggling between the projects and initiatives that we would like to support, because we understand that are important for the sector, sometimes they do tend to lag. That's why that was the impact on the GNSS project, just to be very open about that context. Nothing to do with Christine's team or anything. We are set up and ready to go now in September and ongoing. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, I do think that there are opportunities that are ready over there. I mean, from my own background in using as observations for, in particular, physical oceanography, I do think that there is this, how can I say this, the perception of satellite information to be this very, complex and, inaccurate sometimes idea of it. So there is some reluctancy of including that sort of information source into the forecasting and the operational tools. So there is some socialization, let's say, that it needs to be done with the industry. That, again, I guess that the best way would be to actually, properly and integrate the information in potentially EMEX or other test sites, or a conjunction of test sites, ideally, in our daily operations, so we can showcase in a practical manner how this could be done. I guess that's a little bit of the resistance from the sector that I see. And it is understandable, because you are talking with companies that are small companies trying to push through an idea, trying to get, that how can I say, pushing the barriers of what is possible in a very harsh environment. Their priorities are vast, and they might not be eager to test new things sometimes. Best way we have done to progress on that area is to try to offer them that included on a funding, scheme, in terms of like new methods for environmental monitoring, anything that is not out of their pocket, because that is difficult situation. And I totally get it. You know, they also have salaries to pay, a company to maintain, with machines that are in what we call in the sector the valley of death. That is this place where they start putting machines offshore and everything is getting, cost is getting real, everything is getting expensive, you know. So in practice, I would say a sort of flagship project is, for me, the way to go to showcase the sector, the benefits, the diminishing of cost, and try to start to kill all these ghosts that are around the Earth observations. That's again my personal opinion from my experience in the sector and also my professional background.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, and this is in fact some of the world that I've been going through since I entered the space industry. There is this, in fact, this need for the flagship projects to really showcase the scientific community, the civil community, whoever does out the Earth observation industry, what are the added values, and I agree with you fully. And I also have a question to Marco. You said about you talked about the problems in terms of surveillance. I saw in your presentation various Sentinel-2 images. I understand fully the limitations that you may find using that type of imagery of type of technology. What would you say are the main limitations in terms of the technical capability that this type of imagery can provide you as of today, and what would be the ideal? Obviously, we wanted an image every minute, but this is not possible. But what would be an ideal trade-off to have freely available imagery? What would be your desired? I'm sorry, this is the best way I can put the question.
No, I understand. At this stage, having access to, let's say, low resolution is not a critical aspect. And it's not a critical because the emphasis has been put on developing the algorithms for image recognition and so on. So to some extent, and it's a bit a joke, if you are able to develop these algorithms to detect a vessel in an image like from Sentinel-2, it will be much easier as soon in a higher resolution image. But the emphasis, as I said, has been on the development of the algorithms themselves in a very efficient way. So just to say, up till this point is not critical. In the future will be. But again, I will explain why I'm not concerned about it. But in the future will be critical to have high resolution images. Well, 35 centimeters, as I said before, is, let's say, a nice pixel. It allows us to detect almost everything we want to detect. Then the revisiting period is a bit more critical, and I don't know exactly if at this stage I'm able to answer this question. So I can accept that 2.5 days revisiting period, it will be really good. But obviously, if we can reduce this number, will be much better. Okay, so we are not talking about real-time accessing information, but we are talking with 2.5 days, we are talking almost in I don't know, quasi real-time. Okay, so two critical aspects: resolution, very important, revisiting period, critical, and of course the revisiting period is very hard. It's very easy to understand why it is critical, because 2.5 days means like the surveillance of the farm is not really a plus, because yeah, you know, there's plenty of windows for in which a lot of things may happen. But anyway, something of this order of magnitude is already good for the services that we would like to render to the industry. But let me just say that we are in a critical phase of the development and implementation of offshore renewables. And I tend to say offshore renewables instead of floating wind. But to some extent, I'm tempted to say offshore wind because, as we can see, is an almost well-established sector. But anyway, I think that there will be space for wave energy, there will be space for tidal, there will be space for floating PV, there will be space for many other sources of renewable energy. So I would like to mention offshore renewables as a whole. But just to say that at this stage, is a stage of development and is a stage of large-scale implementation, and but it will take a few years, right? So you cannot. It's a very capex-intensive sector, so you cannot just press a button and in the middle of the ocean. It's not the case. It will take years to achieve, and during these years, I really believe that all the questions regarding the resolution and the revisiting periods and so on will be solved because the space industry is itself also evolving really fast, right? So launching a satellite is something normal nowadays, and in the past was something like rocket science. Well, it is a bit rocket science, but anyway, it was really. But it's getting more and more common. So in 5-10 years, the resolution will be really high, the revisit periods really low, and we can extract full benefits, full information from satellite imagery. So not really concerned about these aspects right now.
Thank you. Thank you for the inputs, and I obviously I open the floor to all the speakers to pose any question that you may have, but I at least on my side I have a final one, and I open this question to everybody. I'm on the space industry side. If we talk about marine or ocean renewable energies, is there of the various types, is there one that is more promising in terms of business and ability to be addressed using Earth observation data, satellite data? Is it possible to pinpoint one of the various? We are talking about waves, currents, wind. Is it possible to pinpoint one that is the most promising?
Well, I don't know if the question is for me, but I can.
It's for every.
I can answer this one with no shadow of doubt. Floating wind. So let me just give some kind of input on that. The plan for the Portuguese, well, the former, and it looks like will be the same for the current Portuguese administration, is to deploy. Is not defined the date, but is to deploy 10 gigas of floating wind. 10 gigas is 80% of the electricity consumption in Portugal nowadays. So you can, from this number, we can imagine the magnitude that we are envisaged for this sector in Portugal. And again, Portugal is an example, but it's not the only one. In Spain, it's a bit the same, although the numbers are a bit lower in terms of ambition. In France, again, in the UK, there are auctions planned all around the world. So without shadow of doubt, I may say that floating wind is the sector that first will take advantage from Earth observation capacity.
Thank you, Mark. Imen, Dennis, you want to add your perspectives?
Yes, sure. So I just hear Marco what he was saying, and I would say that it is valid for developed countries. But when you talk about developing countries and also small islands, the wind is not, I would say, at the top priority. from the webinars, I would say, of what we hear, at least from countries, is integrated renewables. See, they think on uptake, integrating it with PV or even, you know, some innovative solutions, because the islands have other context. It's really small. And also, you know, the climate there is a bit, I would say, not stable, because some power plants get destroyed with climate change events. So and also, you know, they are so protective when it is a question of environment, like any other countries, but there is more, I would say, tense. So I would say that it would not be offshore wind, it will be other technologies, even floating solar PV.
Yeah. Let me. In fact, this point from Imen is really important. But again, Iceland is a small scale to some extent.
Okay.
This is why I focus on the big picture. But regarding, but you are absolutely right. And there is an additional aspect that we need to consider, because normally in Iceland, the cost of energy is much higher than, for instance, in Canarias is almost the double of the continental Spain. And this is also a benefit from new sources of energy like wave energy. It's easier to enter in that, it's not exactly a niche market, but a small market. So in this case, I say that I fully agree with him, and will be really important too.
Thank you, Bill.
Just to add, flipping a little bit the perspective and not entering the market size competition, because as stated, you know, wind is ramping up internationally, and that there is no doubt about it. The amount of gigawatts and all that conversation is there. And also from, as Imen mentioned, it's not only the big scale approach that is suitable for everyone. From a technology perspective, from my point of view, and a technology perspective, meaning what observations could mean for the developers of wave, tidal, and wave energy, I do think that might be a playing field of benefit there. It could have something to say to solve site selection, so to help to solve site selection and micrositing as well, potentially for the big deployments and the small deployments. I'm thinking also in big challenges, you know, more niche initiatives maybe, but that have big potential, echoing the efforts of the powering the blue economy in the US side, thinking about what about other industries that are not exactly the connection to the grid and the multi-gigawatt approaches. They do need also spatial coverage, long-term information to make decisions about, you know, offshore power for instrumentation and resilience, and a lot of angles that I do think that ocean energy has something to say. As well, it's not everything connected, not everything big scale, but in terms of the technology development, I do think that lowering the costs of those first efforts to see what makes sense and where could be key to make, you know, the right decision that fits in the right context, in the right place.
Yeah, I take note of everything, and the session is recorded in YouTube, so we can all revisit and recheck the various perspectives. I think we are still within the webinar time frame, but I believe there are no more questions, and I open the floor to all the speakers if you want to ask anything to anyone. But if all is clear, the only thing left for me to say is thank you very much for all of you for your time, for your inputs. It was an invaluable session. I've learned a lot, I can say, and I hope to see you again soon, virtually or preferably in person, somewhere, sometime. Okay, thank you very much to all.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting.
Bye.
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 Bye.